Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope everyone's well. So I've made a video already about the hijab, about whether it oppresses Muslim women, but one of my students sent me this video and he just asked me to explain it because he thought that the sister in here makes some compelling points. So we're just going to have a watch through it bit by bit, and then I'll try and obviously explain some of the things that she's saying and how we kind of respond to it. So in the interest of not making this video too long, let's make a start. Okay.
Definitely go check out that video. So I obviously am an ex-Muslim. I grew up Muslim and grew up in a Muslim community. And I know for so many of you out there, if you are Muslim or you've come from Muslim communities, you either have been forced to wear the hijab or you know someone that's been forced to wear the hijab. I feel like in Arab countries, Muslim countries, you would definitely be familiar with that, and definitely knowing kind of.
Okay, so the first thing she says is that if you come from a Muslim community or a Muslim country, then you definitely know someone who's been forced to wear the hijab. Well, I mean, I haven't. I've got friends who live in Saudi Arabia who probably don't really know that. But, I mean, that's a very, very, regardless of what I said, that's a very, very big thing to say. You have to provide evidence for that. You can't just say that as a statement because um, based on your own kind of experience of reality, you have to be able to bring some evidence that people see that there's a large amount of people who are being oppressed. But for argument's sake, let's just give her that and let's continue, even though that's a big presupposition to make.
London and the Muslims in kind of UK based, there's always someone in your community, if not the whole community or everyone around you, that's pretty much been forced to wear the hijab. So what's really frustrating is that people ignore.
Okay, so then she's going on now and saying that there's probably, okay, using her words, probably there's whole communities who've been forced to wear the hijab. Okay. Without any evidence, she's saying that.
This, you focus on like it's a choice, but ultimately there are so many girls that have been indoctrinated with this from such a young age. I mean, I wore the hijab from the age of 5 and learned about why girls should be covering from boys at that really, really young age. And of course, that immediately makes you a sort of sexual being, and you suddenly understand.
Okay, this is a problem now. So, secondly, she says that it's indoctrination. Okay, so she says that for all the parents who may be watching this, or anyone who was planning on telling their children to wear a scarf around their head to cover a piece of beauty, you're indoctrinating them. Yeah, which has got negative connotation. This means that you're just telling someone, okay, or indoctrination, a better way of doing it is that you're kind of forcing someone to learn something. So forcing to follow it. Yep. So she's saying to put a piece of clothing over your head, okay, to protect your beauty for women and, to have it as a piece of modesty. Okay, she's saying you're indoctrinated. You're part of some kind of radical thought, okay, of radical branch of Islam. Well, if that was the case, okay, she would have to then admit, by definition, okay, that Mary, the mother of Isa alayhi salam, Maryam alayhi salam, is indoctrinated. If that's the case. Yeah? Because in all the Catholic churches, when you go in there and you see a picture of Maryam, I'm not talking about Islam here, yeah? Talking about Mary. She's always wearing a scarf. So apparently Mary was indoctrinated with this. Okay? And then also as well, this is how ridiculous this argument is, yeah? She's saying that when you tell someone to do something at a young age, you're indoctrinating them. So by her definition, telling a child to not touch fire, is indoctrination. Because according to her definition, what's the difference? Her definition of indoctrination is when you tell a child to do something at a young age. So mother and dads out there, according to this YouTuber, don't tell a child to touch a fire. Also, when the child or any younger brothers and sisters, when they don't want to eat their vegetables, you can't do that now. So don't tell a child to eat healthy. Don't tell a child to eat healthy. Why? Because according to this definition of this YouTuber, it's indoctrination. When you tell a child to do something, okay, even if you think that it's for their best interest, it's indoctrination. So that makes a load of sense. So, yep, as you can see, hijab is clearly indoctrination. Let's move on.
And something that perhaps you shouldn't really think about when you're that age. And it's obligatory to wear it when you become a woman, which is when you start your period. So it literally could be as young as 8 or 9, you're considered a woman and you have to cover your body from boys and men. So if you were just someone who wanted a dress like that.
Okay. So she's saying that when you're, 8 is a bit young. Let's say 9, 10. Okay, let's give it 8, 8, 9, 10, 11. When a woman or a girl might obviously experience her first menstruation, so she becomes mature and a woman in Islam. Okay, so from that period when she becomes mature, yeah, do you see the very definition of what happens? Going through puberty means you're meant to be mature. Yeah? So when you're mature, Islam is asking you to follow rules and wear the hijab. So that's the problem this YouTuber has, that when you're a mature being, you'll have to asked to follow rules. Okay, let's move on. Just make sure everyone's clear with that, yeah?
And that's kind of how you like to dress. That's one thing. But firstly, being told as a small child that actually this is obligatory, you have to do this, it's an order from God, and if you don't do it, you will be punished, because you will be punished if you don't carry out an order from God. There's nothing more serious than an order from God, basically. So as I've said before on my channel, that to call it a choice, even just without the family, just for a second, if we ignore the whole family and community aspect of it, just the Islamic understanding, it's literally like putting a gun to someone's head and saying, well, if you don't do this, it's your choice, but if you don't do this, I'll shoot you in the head. That's not really a choice. Muslims always tell me, well, it is a choice because you can choose to be Muslim or not. You can have the choice. But if you believed this, then it's terrifying. And it's literally a violent, horrible threat that you've got if you don't do it.
Okay, this is an even more ridiculous argument than the previous ones. I mean, the previous ones were really bad, but at least other people believed it. This one is absolutely awful. Right, so she's saying, okay, that Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in the Quran. So Allah tells you to wear. So let's talk about the hijabs. He tells you to wear hijab, okay? And then obviously, if you don't follow the laws of Islam and you commit major sins, and there's a whole process of Allah not forgiving you and your bad deeds weighing more than your good deeds, then hell awaits. Okay? Even though it's not as simple as that, but let's even put it as simple as that, okay? Oh, why is that? Okay, that was weird. 1 second, let me get that back up. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So, this is what she's saying, okay? Well, let's take it as it's as simple as that, okay? This is such a ridiculous argument. Just look at everyday life. In everyday life, the government tells you you must do things, and if you don't do it, there are going to be repercussions. For example, the government says, don't steal, because if you steal, you will get a punishment or jail. So let's just put jail. Okay? So she's saying because the government says that there's going to be something's going to happen to you if you do it, it's not a choice. So all of us, 99.99% of the population who never steal in their life, alhamdulillah, yeah, or most of us who never steal, we don't actually do it out of a choice. When me and you actually don't want to go and steal what a beggar has, we're not actually doing it because we choose to do it. It's because the government has a gun to our head. When the government says, don't kill, or you'll go to jail, or in other places where you will be killed as a punishment. So if you kill someone, for example, there's some states in America where that will happen, or other places where you are put into jail. When all of us here, 99% of the population, don't want to kill someone, You're not killing them because you don't want to kill people. It's not that you're actually a good person, according to this YouTuber. Apparently, you're not doing it because the government is telling you not to do it and because they have a gun to your head, effectively. How ridiculous is that argument? That when someone says there's a bad consequence to doing it and you don't do it, you're doing it because you're forced. No, the consequence is there if you choose. This is why it's a choice. If you choose to do something, the government says this is what's going to happen, so be warned. This is the exact same thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the women in the Quran. And He tells the men as well, but that's obviously not the purpose of this video. But in terms of modesty, where Allah tells the women that, look, I have prescribed for you to wear a hijab to cover your hair and your chest. Because when you look at the semantics of the Quran, it includes the chest because of the Arab women. If you don't do that, He says, you will see there will be harms you will see in this life. And also, if you reject it, then in the next life there will be consequences. Because when you join Islam and when you're a Muslim, the definition of a Muslim is someone who has submitted peacefully to Allah. So you're meant to listen to what He says. What's the difference between when Allah's telling us to do it and when the government's telling us to do it? Well, in fact, seeming as though in Islam, Allah is all-knowing. Yeah? And is the most intelligent thing ever and knows more than anyone else can ever know. Why wouldn't we listen to it? Don't we listen to government? Yeah? Does this YouTuber go around stealing and killing because the government's told them not to? No, it's a choice. So we choose not to steal, we choose not to kill because they're good things to do. Like a woman would choose to wear the hijab because Allah has told her to do it and she loves it because she loves Allah. And she knows also in her heart that, look, also if I don't do it, there could be consequences. So that whole argument is completely ridiculous because otherwise that means that anyone in the whole history who's not stolen and killed has not done it out of choice but out of the fact that they're scared of the consequences, which is ridiculous. We'll just do a bit more because I'm wary of the time. Oh, okay, and we're back.
That's not really a choice. Muslims always tell me, well, it is a choice because you can choose to be Muslim or not. You can have the choice. But if you believed this, then it's terrifying. And it's literally a violent, horrible threat that you've got if you don't do it.
If you look at not abiding by the hijab, a woman who shows her hair or wears revealing clothes, is this a major sin or not? The Prophet told us, alayhi salatu wasalam, and the hadith is in the Sahih, that there are two types of people He did not see, yet they are among the people of hell. And He mentioned one of them to be women who are dressed yet nude, meaning that either they're wearing transparent clothes, you can see through it, so that she's actually nude, or she's wearing tight clothes that reveals her awrah. So the Prophet told us that they are from the people of hell. In another hadith, he said, curse them because they are cursed by Allah Azza wa Jal, which is an indication that this is indeed a major sin.
Is hijab something important? It is. How important it is? For women, the hijab is as important as praying. Really? Yes, because it has been ordained by Allah in His Quran. Ayah number 59 of Surah Al-Ahzab for your reference. Will I be responsible for my wife's misbehavior? Yes, you will. You're a family father, that's your responsibility.
How in any way does that make it freedom of choice? How is that freeing and liberating? Then on top of that, there are Muslim countries out there such as Iran and Saudi Arabia where it is mandatory by law to wear the hijab. So if they weren't to wear hijab, they could be punished by the government. In fact, Saudi Arabia includes the burqa, the full black garment, the abaya. That is also mandatory. So there are so many women who just don't have this basic human right of being able to choose how they dress. So I actually asked you guys to send me some of your stories.
Okay. So this is the last point I'll wrap it up on, because the last bit of the video is just her going through people's emails of, some sisters' stories about being forced and being physically abused and mentally abused, which we all know is not part of Islam, and that's people who are acting out of Islam. And that's obviously another conversation, I think, to be able to deal with that. But let's deal with the first part where she puts the sheikhs on, okay, and she puts their video on, and then we'll just talk about the last bit she said. So, first she puts the sheikhs on, and she talks about how the Prophet ﷺ talked about women in hell being people who were nude, and then also the other sheikhs talking about how it's important part of their faith. The first part where she has a problem with people in hell, we discussed that, yeah? It's about consequences. The Prophet ﷺ said that just to tell us consequences of what's going to happen. And also, if you think about it, he's talking about nudity in society. Nudity in society, where you have the uncovering of the body, will lead to the destruction of society. Look around you for anyone who's not aware of what we're talking about. Look at how sexualized the society is, how we have the rise of pornography and things like this, and the amount of problems we have with things like physical and domestic abuse in people's homes, and divorces, and then the impact that has on children. If you look at the statistics, especially in the Western world, but because that is translated to the Eastern world, you see it there as well, where the Muslim countries have adapted this ideology as well of liberation of all kinds. You can see the horrifying statistics of what's happening. So what the Prophet ﷺ said is to protect us from the disaster that we're in, so I see no problem with anything there. The next bit, she actually makes a good point. I'll actually credit her. She makes a good point. She talks about forcing. And she talks about some of the countries in the world which have got rules which force people to do it. So this is important, okay? It's a good point she's made about some Islamic countries, or Muslim countries, in inverted commas, which force people. That is against Islam and against the Quran and against the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. You will never find any hadith where the Prophet ﷺ was said to a woman, you have to put this on now. Go home and put the hijab on, otherwise you can't come out. Yes, he talked of hadith, that he said things like, there will be part of Jahannam people who walk around nude. He talks about for males and females, he talks about zina and things like this, but he never forces anything. Why? Because there's a beautiful ayah in the Quran, the next verse after Ayatul Kursi, which if this sister, I think, had been aware of, she would have maybe mentioned it to kind of defend Islam, where it says, what? La ikraha fid din. There is no compulsion in religion. Wallahi, what a brilliant ayah which proves everything she has said to be wrong. La ikraha fid din. There is no compulsion in religion. Allah Azza wa Jal says there is no compulsion in religion. You cannot force anyone to do anything in Islam. Yeah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the advice and the commands, and He tells us to follow them. He will never force anyone to follow it, and no one can also force anyone else. We can give advice when parents give advice to their children. Children will listen to it because it's their parents, and they know that they love them and they care for them and want the best for them. This is not indoctrination. Yeah, that's like saying that when we tell kids that, oh, you can't walk around naked because it's immodest. Oh, that's indoctrination. What rubbish is that? Yeah, what a really poor argument she's making from that. But Islam says there is no compulsion in religion. And I can't speak and sit here and speak and defend Islamic countries. I can't do that, yeah? Countries will make mistakes. All I can do here is sit here and defend the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, yeah? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it a choice. If you want to talk about how society and culture and tradition has changed it, then I can have a conversation with you and say, yeah, we have a problem. But don't try and make that there's a problem in Islam and a problem with the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah? They have perfected our religion. It is in no need of any change. These things are there to protect everyone, and women and men are equal in Islam, like I say in the previous episode. They are equal, but they are treated differently because we are different in certain ways, psychological, physiologically, and physically, and many others. I hope that makes sense. If anyone's got any questions, do put it in the comments. I'm more than happy to respond to anyone. So yeah, Jazakallah for your time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.